Thank you very much. Good afternoon, members. Welcome to this meeting of the Review of Standing Orders Subcommittee. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through our Council's website. I'll remind you briefly of a few arrangements in the guidance note. Microphones should be muted and videos switched off when you are not addressing the meeting, please. Should you wish to contribute to any item, write speak in the Teams chat function. You will be invited to speak in order about new issues. Should your question or issue be raised by a previous speaker, please withdraw your request so that we deal with the business as efficiently as possible. I will try to keep an eye on raised hand function as well, given this is a small meeting. Usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. And if any member has to leave the meeting for any reason, and given that we are only just quorum, this is crucial, please advise that you are doing so, as we need to record member presence. And also please do not use the chat function for any contributions that are material to debate. Okay, item 1 is Sedern apologies and Chair's approval of members' remote participation. Claire, can you provide the Sedern and any apology, please?
Yes, of course, Chair. I can confirm we've got 3 members present on Teams today being yourself, Councillor Brodie and Councillor Thompson. We've got 2 apologies from Councillor Hislop and Councillor Wilson. Councillor Ian Carruthers and Councillor Johnston are currently not present.
Thank you, Claire. And of course, I approve of members' remote participation. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Do any members have a declaration of interest they wish to make?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I will take it there are then no declarations of interest. Item 3 is the minute of the previous meeting of 9th February 2022. Can we approve that minute, please? Take silence as assent.
Happy to approve.
Thanks, Stephen. Item 4 is a review of scheme of administration and delegation to committees and scheme of delegation and responsibilities to officers and statutory appointments, and the report is by the Head of Governance and Assurance. Vlad Valiente and Nick Evans are both here to assist with members' questions. Before we go to questions and comments and debate, I'll just check, Vlad or Nick, whether either of you has anything to add.
Just bear with me, I think Councillor Brodie's gone off, but he's coming back in, it looks like.
Okay.
So we'll just call it back.
We just pause, I think, then, clearly, because we are not currently quorum until Councillor Brodie is able to rejoin.
I think he was having audio problems.
Hi, Richard, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you now. I was muted as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, that's great.
Perfect.
Very glad you were able to rejoin. Thanks, Richard.
Okay.
Okay, so we just got to the main item, item 4, and I just invited Vlad and Nick to advise if there's anything that they wanted to add before we go to questions and comments. So I'll hand straight back to you, Vlad. And then we'll go to questions and comments.
This particular report, by saying that this has obviously been a long-term project of ours for the last wee while. It's been a lot of work for officers in terms of trying to go through the relevant methodology for trying to get us to this final outcome, which included obviously member and officer workshops. Obviously further consultations with the relevant directorates and heads of services as appropriate, and also legal services in terms of ensuring that the schemes are compliant and that the reference to legislation are accurate. So we have gone through quite a long, hard work process, but I'm glad that you've got now the outcomes. We've tried to incorporate as much as we could in terms of all the feedback, which has been substantial, as you can imagine, from everything from members to officers, and we've tried to, as much as possible, analyse that, put it into specific patterns and in essence put forward what we think is a more appropriate scheme of delegation or delegations plural. In regards to the moving forward, although recognising that this is a good strong review of the scheme of delegations, I'm keen that this is an annual review, and we should always be looking to improve the scheme as we go along. And I think we may find that an annual review just catches out things such as changes in legislation and various other remits and changes for local government as we go along, as well as any particular issues that arise along the way. So this is an ongoing conversation, but the scheme of delegations that we're proposing is as sound as we can make it at this point in time. So I'm hoping that members will be agreeable to what we're proposing. There's obviously some recommendations there in terms of this subcommittee needs to agree certain things, and once that's agreed, then we'll take that to full council on the 31st of March. That's everything. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thanks very much, and I certainly both recognise and appreciate the amount of work that's been done on this. It's a straightforward thing to commission, but not a straightforward thing to undertake, I think it would be fair to say. And I think you make an excellent point about annual review. I mean, all of these schemes change over time as the requirements of the organisation change, but having a regular process for keeping on top of things, I think is very, very sensible, good housekeeping. So there's quite a lot for us to go through here in terms of considerations and recommendations, but I think maybe I'll start with asking Stephen and Richard whether you have any general questions or particular points that either of you want to raise before we go through each of the things we're being asked to look at. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I was just, obviously we've got the appendices not that long ago, the sort of track changes one. So yeah, I suppose the easy way out is just say, yeah, I agree with Vlad, comprehensive piece of work. Let's just get it done. But yeah, I mean, I think given the fact that this is something that's sort of perennial review, if you like, and we've seemed to have made some steps forward, I'm generally happy. I mean, to be fair, I've not been able to go over the sort of track changes as finely as I'd have liked to for today, but I can see the direction of travel, and I think we've captured most of the things that I think have sort of come up. So I'm just sort of reading while I speak kind of thing, so it's always never a good place to be. But yeah, I mean, generally, yeah, I think I'm sort of quite comfortable where we're going. I'm sure there might be some sort of crossed T's and dotted I's that need to be sort of discovered, but in the main, I'm assured the fact that it's this is annually reviewed. So I think if we're getting into good practice, I think that should see us in good stead, because I think we can't do everything all at once, and obviously everything we do will need reviewed anyway, because things will change in the future. So, but yeah, but generally supportive, I think, and happy to hear from Richard if he's got any comments.
Yep, thanks, Stephen. I think that's helpful. Richard?
Yeah, nothing more, Chaz. It was really a big part of work, so just have to make a decision today or recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I was going to suggest, colleagues, is I think we'll go through the recommendations one at a time, rather than debating everything and coming back to things. I think if we go through each one, that's probably the best thing to do, given that most of them are quite detailed. So, in fact, all of them are detailed. So I was going to suggest that we start at the beginning at 2.1 in terms of the proposed definition of a key decision. That's set out in appendix 3. Sorry, not appendix 3.6. That's set out in paragraph 3.6, and it's also in appendices 1 and 2. I mean, my own view was actually I'd really welcome this. I think it's a sensible way of taking forward the FPT recommendation that this originally came from. So I'm certainly supportive of it, but keen to keen to hear what you both think on that one. Quite happy to take silence as assent, but
quite happy with the thing in 3.6.
That's great. Thanks, Richard. Stephen?
Yeah, yeah, happy enough to go along with this. I think initially when this was sort of first introduced, it was sort of couched in and around, I think, discussions about area committee. And then I think we were still in the process of looking at area committees and how particularly sort of budget decisions might be taken at area committee. So I think that kind of didn't help me sort of get a clear understanding of it at the time. But I think as we've gone on, it's maybe become clearer in terms of where it sits and what the term means. So yeah, I think happy enough to go along with that. Thank you.
Okay, no, I think that's really helpful. Well, we will come back to this actually in terms of making sure that all the decisions and recommendations are taken. But I guess so far as we're concerned, we're supportive of the definition at 3.6, which I think is really helpful. The second part, I guess, is the biggest in terms of volume, being the amendments in the scheme of administration and delegation to committees. That's as in Appendix 1, although I certainly found the comments were helpful as well. I think, like Stephen, I'm still working my way through every last one of these, but I'm conscious that they've had quite a lot of oversight and input already. So I certainly am personally keen that they go forward to full council. Are you both happy that we do that?
Okay.
Thanks,
yes.
Richard. Okay. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah. And then at 2.3, options regarding the local review body, where we've got, I think in this one, we have no fewer than 5 options, in fact. I had myself in considering this thought that there probably would be merit in looking at this on the same basis as the other panels that we appoint, which I think would take us to option 2, whereby we'd have 7 members chosen by rota from the Planning Apps Committee, which I think, if memory serves me correctly, is broadly speaking in line with what we do with the civic government licensing, etc. Vlad, is that right?
Sorry, Chair, my mic was muted there. Yes, that's correct. So that would be in line with civic government licensing approach that we currently have. And all the details are set out there within both that option 2 in terms of how that would work and also the comments on the right hand side.
Yeah, thanks for that, Vlad. Richard, I saw you unmuting.
Just agree that option 2 that increases consistency. So let's go with that.
Brilliant, thanks, Richard. Stephen, any comments, views?
No, I mean, yeah, quorum's still 3, but it does sort of increase. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I think the 5 was maybe just a legacy thing. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to materially affect that much in terms of the quorum. So and that maybe would be a concern, but otherwise, no, happy with option 2.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Stephen. Thank you, Richard. Much appreciated. Okay, so we'll in that case recommend option 2 with regard to the LRB. Okay, so 2.4 is the options regarding youth council representation on area committees, and in this one we're assisted by their own feedback, which set out, so the options are set out at table 1, and the feedback from the Youth Council, I think, was in favour of option 2, which is places awarded on the basis of the number of wards covered by the area committee, 1 per ward, but on a rotational basis across the whole membership of the Youth Council. Interestingly, that's probably not the one I would have chosen, but I think if we have a Youth Council in order to ask their opinion, then we should pay attention to it when we get it. So my own view is if they've requested option 2, then I think that's what we should go with and see how it goes. But again, colleagues, can you hear what you think?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'd have favoured option 1 because it gives more continuity as well. So it's whether we go for what we think or whether we go for what young people or the Youth Council thinks. Youth Council we're not going to always agree with the Youth Council. So perhaps we should go with option 1 or go back to them and say, have they considered continuity? I'm not sure whether they have or not.
I absolutely see where you're coming from because, as I say, I think option 1 is what I would have gone for myself. I am conscious, having been a representative of Abbey Ward for 15 years, that we sit on 2 area committees. So the Abbey Ward Youth Councillors would therefore end up doing the same. And I am very conscious that that's my duty for which I'm remunerated. Youth councillors are volunteers, so I do just think we maybe just need to not miss that out. I know that's only 1 ward out of our council, but it is a consideration. Stephen, you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, maybe unfortunately, but I'm very happy to support whatever the Youth Council's decided to put forward. And I can understand. Ultimately, what we're asking is whether or not we think there should be Youth Council representation. But really, I think we would expect other bodies to allow us to decide how we want to, name our members. And I think, if we're going to be treating the Youth Council as on a kind of par or equality, I would say that we should allow them to do the same. And if they then subsequently decide, oh, actually there's a continuity issue, it's better they discover that than we tell them that, in a sense. I think there's an element of self-determination there and reflection for each Youth Council. So if they think option 2, that's what they've agreed, I think we should respect that and know that we will get representation from the Youth Council in a way they're happy with. Or at least it's the settled will of the Youth Council, if that's fair. So I would go with that principle. So I don't know what we do to reach a decision on that, but that's what I would think.
I mean, I suppose we could have a motion which is moved and seconded, but I don't think that we could then have an amendment. I'm not quite sure how that would work. In all honesty, it probably wouldn't. Yeah, I am inclined to agree with you, Stephen. But Richard, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because we've got a duty to do what we think is right, based on our experiences. But as Sim says, you learn from your mistakes. So there's no point in having the motion, so we'll just go ahead with option 2.
Thanks, Richard. Let's recommend option 2 and see how it goes. It may very well be that everybody determines that we ought to try something else once this has had a chance to be implemented. Vlad, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, and not to postpone any decision making, because I think you've captured that. However, just bearing in mind that this is what we are recommended to full council, and full council will ultimately decide the ultimate outcome on this as well, so that there is an opportunity for full council to decide, obviously taking on board whatever the review of standing order subcommittee decide.
So I mean, I think then, I mean, it is important for us to be fair. When we do that, can we can we include the fact that the opinion was at any rate expressed that, noting what the Youth Council had said, that there was at least a minority view on the here in favour of option one. I think it's important that we record that fairly. Not least because there aren't actually enough of us to do motions and amendments today. So I think, under those circumstances in particular, I think it's important we do that. So if you could do that, well, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I see that Councillor Thompson's got his hand up. So,
okay, that's great. Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks, Vlad, for that. I mean, sort of a technical point, but if quorum for this meeting is 3, then we have sufficient authority to make decisions, I guess, even if we would like to have more. I do take I suppose my imagined narrative is like, yeah, review of standing order subcommittee, they were the good guys. They put forward, they accepted the Youth Council's way in which they wanted to enjoy the representation which we think they should have. The fact that a view that was expressed was about option one, I mean, yeah, we could say that we've discussed that and we've heard those views, but ultimately we decided that the balance should tip in favour of what the Youth Council felt. It's then up to full council, and if full council decides something else against the recommendations of this subcommittee, then at least the Youth Council or those interested in such things will be able to track how this subcommittee listened to their views, tipped the balance in their favour, and then full council, whatever decision it makes, they can track that. They can see how that process works, where the decisions are made, and where the good guys are, and where the bad guys are, or whatever, So, but do you know what I mean? So I think there is something to be said for, yeah, you can get recommendations from various committees, but that's the decision-making body there, and that's actually instructive as an observer to who's got a vested interest, which these council members might have. So, by all means, capture the different views of this subcommittee, but ultimately our recommendation is option 2. Do you know what I mean? So, and then
absolutely, that's correct. I mean, that is what we are doing. We're asked to consider and make a recommendation. Option 2 is our recommendation. Clearly, had there been more members, there might have been a vote, perhaps. So, I think it not unreasonable that it's captured, but certainly, the recommendation is option 2, and I think that's absolutely clear cut. Okay, so that's 2.4. Thank you both. 2.5. In which we are asked to consider the responses to the points which were raised regarding the remit of area committees. That's paragraphs 314 to 321. So there's quite a stack of them there. Stephen, I seem to remember you raised at least half of these, I think. I'm right in saying, if not more. So I'm going to go to you first, which is maybe unkind, but...
What I would say is that was historical, Stephen. I'm not that guy. I'm current Stephen. But so I mean, yeah, a lot of this has been. I think what surprised me was how this came through relatively unscathed and unchallenged area committees, because there have been in the past lots of different views about what should be going on at area committees, or what they should or shouldn't do, or when they should and shouldn't meet, etc., and what powers they should have, etc. But it might be that there's further discussion on that. But I think if we're in the practice of reviewing, I think that's fair enough. I think the presence of South of Scotland Enterprise will be an interesting thing, and I know at the ENR, at our Annandale and Eskdale event yesterday in terms of economic and development activity in Annandale. There's very much synergies and things to be had in terms of like recognising South of Scotland Enterprise in the same way as we have speakers from Health and Social Care Partnership or Police or Fire or whatever area committees, and that is something that at 314 I think that's something we should really strive for in terms of our partnership arrangements. but yeah, beyond that, I mean, yeah, nothing really to add. I think the report sort of captures where I think we should go, and of course we can review it again in a year if need be. And ultimately, this is a recommendation. Full council will decide. So yeah, thank you. I see Vlad's.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Thanks, Stephen. As SOS has been raised, I will just direct members to the inclusion in my declaration of interest in terms of remuneration, albeit that is very recent, but just so we're all clear. Sorry, Vlad, do you want to come in?
Yeah, absolutely acknowledging, Chair, in terms of what Councillor Thompson has said, and ultimately what you've got in paragraphs 314 to I think it's 321 is in essence a number of items that we tried to address in terms of the questions that came up in regards to area committees specifically, but we are absolutely recognising in terms of officers that that's an area that we would probably need to do further work on in the future to maybe address some of these items, but also in terms of the actual scheme of delegations. But what we would need to do, and timescales weren't with us, is to have that further conversation with members in terms of those area committee remits and get more of the thoughts about what we can actually do within those area committees, what extra delegations they specifically want, etc. So that would be another piece of work that we would need to consider and look at in the future, recognising that we've identified all these things and we've answered as many as we could and we've addressed as many as we could within the current amendments.
Thanks, Vlad. So I think that is helpful. Stephen, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, no, and sorry, yes, I do. And thanks, Vlad. I think, I mean, some of the things that, so Coastal Benefit Fund and the short-term let, some of these were sort of flying kites or floating boats in the case of the Coastal Benefit Fund, probably. But I mean, this was more to do with, trying to explore, well, what could we do if these opportunities come up, because these are relatively new things. Well, they are new things, and but I think the way it's been explained and set out, I think yes, fair enough, because while we might get, in the same way as we do lots of things, a sort of summary of, well, what have we done in relation to this insofar as this locality is concerned, that area committees are characterised now by reporting rather than decision making a lot of the time. So sort of keep account of how our regional service has been delivered in the locality, and the sort of high resolution data, if you like, that reflects the sort of localities. But the decision making is still often strategic or at the service committee. So area committees are, in that sense, sort of somewhat benign, and sort of, not talking shop's the wrong word, but the more discursive, where we're trying to capture stuff and feed back into the sort of centre. But yeah, so I think it's good that we've explored the ideas, but ultimately, yeah, so if anything, it helps us clarify what the role is in terms of the processes and what role area committees play in relation to the strategic committee. So yeah, so in short, yeah, fine, thanks.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks, Stephen. So I mean, I think. Oh, sorry, Richard, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just to say that I think we'll need to look at the area committees after the election. I've always been in favour of more being done at area level, given more autonomy and more funding to actually make a difference at local level. So that's always been a view, and yeah, and we need to look at it again. We'll see what the new council cohort thinks.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I don't want to give the impression of wanting to just push things into the future for the new council, but I do think that there's a difference between rounding off this piece of work. It's really important that we do that and we make these recommendations. But the new council, however it is composed, and I think there will be quite a change in terms of members, will want to look at the arrangements they live with for the next 5 years. So I'm picking up then. I think that we've considered all of these responses in the paragraphs outlined. We appreciate them, but I don't think at this point we're looking for further amendment to the remit in terms of recommending to full council at the end of March. but that this is something that we recognise the next council is going to want to come back to. Is that seem fair? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks both. So then to 2.6, which is effectively subject to all of the decisions we've already taken. Are we content to agree to recommend to full council the draft scheme of administration and delegation to committees? I hope we are.
Yes.
Okay,
Agreed.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks both. Grant, and then at 2.7, we're asked to consider the proposed amendments to the scheme of delegation and responsibilities to officers and statutory appointments. That's shown in the track changes in Appendix 2. Any points or issues either of you would like to raise on this one, please? Again, I think this was canvassed quite widely through the shop process.
Happy to agree. Yeah.
Thanks. Stephen?
Yeah, happy to agree.
Brilliant, okay. And then that has effectively covered 2.8 because we're asked to agree the draft scheme of delegation responsibilities to officers and statutory appointments as outlined in the appendix, which effectively we have just done. But I'll just double check that we are absolutely content to do that. Take it that we are. Okay. I'm going to just go back to Vlad and double check that we have covered everything that is required with regard to the recommendations that will take the report to full council. Have we?
Yeah, I'm just checking, and also I'll bring in Claire as well, just to make sure from her end that she's happy and content. And I see that Nick's raised his hand, so it might be worthwhile just bringing in Nick and Claire as appropriate.
Yeah, grand, will do. Nick?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, it was just to consider at 2.8, where it talks about subject to any amendments at 2.5, which is in relation to area committee remits. Should it be referencing any amendments made at 2.7 rather than 2.5? Or have I got the wrong end of the stick there?
That's a very good point, actually. It slightly threw me off course when I was reading that out, I have to admit. I read it a couple of times and didn't quite recognise that until you raise it right now. Claire, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, I believe that's just a typo, Chair. Okay. Sorry, that should be that 2.5 should be 2.7.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, great. So at recommendation 2.8, we were asked to agree based on what we considered at 2.7. But we have agreed that, and we had considered that we were content with it. So I think everything's fine. But I appreciate it being picked up. Bizarre how one's mind works. I think sometimes you read the thing 3 times. It's not until you say it out loud that it actually wrong foots you. Okay, grand. But otherwise, I think I'm picking up that everyone is content that we have covered everything that we needed to in terms of making the decisions that are needed for the recommendations to go up to full council on the 31st of March. I think that's right.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, can I just confirm that the committee are recommending that the association should be approached in regard to representation at area committee?
I had taken that to be the case, yes.
Yeah, just making that confirmation.
I'll just double check. Stephen and Richard, you're both content with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no, thanks for the clarification, Claire. Much appreciated. Okay, so with that clarification, we have gone through all the recommendations, and I have no other business. So thank you all very much for your time. Maybe not a small select group of us, but we got everything done that we needed to. And thanks once again to officers for the huge amount of work that's been done on this, because I know it has been really substantial and there has been a lot of work behind the scenes to get all of this ready. So that is really much appreciated. Sorry, Stephen, did you want to come in?
Yeah, no, I mean, just to echo that, Rob, I know that you know, between Claire, Nick, and Vlad, and the rest of the sort of team involved at various times, it's that, you know, there's a lot of words to read and look at and change and check, and just, you know, it's it has been a lengthy process. So just appreciate all the work done by the team. Thanks for recognising that. Thank you.
No, absolutely.
Thank you too. My thanks also.
Yeah, thank you both. Yeah, it is a huge piece of work. I mean, hopefully going through it on an annual basis will be a little less onerous. I guess it's doing everything in a one year that is quite as huge as it has been this time. But with that, folks, I have no further business. So thank you all very much for your contributions and attendance. All much appreciated, and I'll draw matters to a close there. Thank you all.